Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be talking about virgin heroes. So I am a big fan of this trope. I love when the woman is more experienced than the man. I recognize it and kind of make a note of it every time that this trope happens because it is one of my favorites. I just like the dynamic. It changes the dynamic of the story a little bit because men are known for being in more experienced, more of a power position in the bedroom. And when you have a virgin hero, it swaps and you get a little bit more of a dominant woman in the bedroom because she knows what she's doing and the man doesn't. And that's something that I enjoy reading in my books. So I have a couple of recommendations to share with you. I think I have like 4 or 5 of some books with this trope that I love. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to recommend is a Serena Bowen book, Keepsake by Serena Bowen. This is book 3, I think, in the True North series, but you do not have to read them in order. You can read them as standalones. And this one is about Zachariah, who is a cult escapee. He escaped from a cult years ago, and he is working at Shipley Farms, and he lives at the farms, and he has become good friends and basically found family members with the family, the Shipleys, that own the farm. And he the cult that he came from is a polygamist cult, and he was thrown out for being caught with one of the women his own age, kissing her. And that's aggressively not allowed because the women are given to the older men and there are too many men in the cult. And so whenever they get the opportunity, they discard some of the younger men and throw them out because there are too many of them. So Zach was thrown out of the cult and he has never experienced most things. And he has this list of things that he needs to experience that he's never done before. He never had watched TV, seen movies, heard music other than Bible music in his whole life, and he has never had sex. And the heroine in this book is Lark, and Lark is a good friend of one of the Shipley daughters, and he had this experience, very traumatic experience for her, when she was abroad overseas and she got kidnapped, and I think she might have been tortured or she was kidnapped for ransom while she was overseas, and the people who kidnapped her were horrible to her. And now she went from being this very outgoing, very fun-loving person to just this ball of terror. She doesn't like to be around lots of people. She's more shy now. She just needs to get away. And she goes to live on the Shipley farm for the summer, I think, just to get away from things, because it's in Vermont, it's not a lot of people around. It's an apple orchard. There's not a lot of people around, so she can more have the monotonous work of working on the farm and not have a lot of people around and just clear her head a little bit after everything that had happened to her. And they form the most beautiful relationship where they're both so damaged from their pasts, and they have to come together and just have the most adorable relationship and love that they form together. It's so cute. I really, really loved it, and he is a virgin hero. Okay, the next one that I'm going to mention is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This one is about a guy who is mute. He is, I think he's also deaf. And it is about a girl who moves to town. She had been from the big city, and she moves to this small town. Kind of, she just, again, needs to get away from life. And she meets this man named Archer. And he is kind of like the town weirdo. Like, nobody really, like, talks to him. He doesn't talk to other people. He doesn't really come into town. He doesn't really leave his land. And they end up forming a friendship and a relationship where she actually takes the time to get to know him and, like, kind of get into his walls a little bit, where he had never let anyone in before, and nobody had ever really taken the time. Nobody had ever really cared enough to take the time to try and speak to him, try and talk to him and get to know him. And they, she able to, like, learn his story and learn who he is, and it's really, really, really cute. And he, again, had never really experienced a lot of things. He didn't really even go to, he doesn't have friends, he doesn't go out, he doesn't do anything to leave his land, so he's never had the opportunity to have sex before, so he is also a virgin. Okay, the next one that I have is Love in the Wild by Emma Castle. This is actually a Tarzan retelling. So not a lot of opportunity to meet women when you're raised by gorillas. So this one is about a girl named Eden who, along with a couple of other photographers, I think they're photographers, they are on this photography expedition in Africa to take pictures of the jungle, of the scenery, when their photography troupe gets overtaken by evil people. And she ends up being rescued from these men who are trying to kill the photographers by a man who moves through the jungle and knows the jungle, and he doesn't speak much, and he talks to the, or he seems like he can communicate with the animals, and he lives in a cave, and he rescues her, and he brings her to his cave where he lives, and he sees, he doesn't really know a lot, so he sees her, and he sees that she's like him and that she's beautiful, and he doesn't really, like, know what feelings are or what he's experiencing, because, like, he's never been taught, he's never been around people, so he has to, like, learn what he's feeling and why he is feeling this way. And their relationship is so cute, and the African scenery, the African setting is amazing. I loved it. It's so good, and it does follow the Tarzan story, where he is actually a English titled man, I think he might be like a lord from England, and that his parents had crashed there and everything. So it does follow the traditional Tarzan story, but it's has its own little twists in it that set it aside from any other like Tarzan one, and I loved it. Okay, so the next one that I want to talk about is Souls Unfractured by Tilly Cole. This is part of the Hades Hangman series. I think it's book 3. And this one is about a woman named Maddie who has had absolutely horrible things happen to her in her life. She grew up in a cult, a polygamous cult, horrible cult, where she has been labeled a cursed woman. So this cult had set aside a couple of women that they labeled as cursed women, and that they had to be, like, punished for being alive. And so she has just basically lived nothing but pain and torture for her whole life. And her sisters have experienced that, and they have recently escaped the cult, and they are living with the Hades Hangmen Motorcycle Club. And now she doesn't know how to live. Really, she's never been given the opportunity to live. So now she's like 20 years old, and she doesn't want to go outside. She wants to stay inside. She does not feel safe. She doesn't know anything about the world. She doesn't know how to separate what she's been told her whole life about who she is versus what the Hades Hangmen are saying is actually the truth, and that is what she's been told her whole life, and that she was punished for no reason, basically. And so she just wants to stay safe. She wants to hide inside, away from everything. But there is this man, one of the members of the Hades Hangmen, who has sort of attached himself as her protector, and his name is Flame, and he is like the most crazy member of the Hangmen. He is named Flame, and he stands guard outside of her house, outside where she's staying, forever. He just watches over her. He finds himself, he thinks, he knows that he needs to protect her. He like knows it in his soul that that's what he needs to do. And she, whereas a lot of the other women are unsure of Flame and they feel scared around him, he makes Maddie feel safe. And the fact that he's there watching over her makes her feel safe and makes her feel better. In this, Flame ends up being in trouble, and Maddie ends up stepping up and helping, and nobody really expects it of her, and nobody really thinks that she should. But she decides that she's going to be brave, and that she needs to protect him the way that he's protected her. It's very a lot. Like it's very powerful, but it's also very painful. They've both been tortured beyond belief. There are exceptional amount of trigger warnings in this book. But they both kind of save each other from the horrible things that have happened to them. One more. And the last one is one that I read recently, and it's a historical, and that is Thief of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is part of her Maiden Lane series. You do not have to read them in order. I have read them all out of order. I haven't finished them, but I've read all the ones that I've read have been like jumping back and forth. This is book 4. I think I've read book 8 and 3 and 1. And I loved this. It was so good. So this one is about a guy named Winter who lives this double life, and he has his during the day life, his everyday life that he presents to the world, where he is Winter Makepeace. He is the owner and he's in charge of the home for wayward and foundling children. It's basically like an orphanage, and it is in the most darkest and worst neighborhood to live in London, and that's where the children come from. So that's where he has this orphanage, and he loves the children. He takes care of them, and that is part of his purpose, and that is his everyday life. But at night, he dons a disguise and a sword, and he travels around as the ghost of St. Giles, where he helps to protect the people of St. Giles from the horrible things that happen there. And he's kind of like a vigilante. And so what happens in this book is that one day, Winter, as the ghost of St. Giles, gets wounded. He gets stabbed, and he is unable to make it home. And this woman named Isabel, Lady Isabel Beckenhall, helps him, and she cares for him and has her maid sew him up, his stitches up, and make sure that he is not dead. And Isabel also happens to be one of the women who have just taken over as the owners of this home for foundling children, and they want to replace him as the head of the home. They don't believe that he is up to the task, but Isabel does, and Isabel has decided that she is going to take it upon herself to teach Winter the ways of high society, because Winter doesn't come from high society, and that's one of the reasons why the women who now are in charge of this home don't think that he's up to the task of running the home, because he doesn't come from noble birth. He was like the son of a beer maker or something. He is not titled, he is not noble, he is normal, he's common. And the people who bought this, these women who now are in charge of this orphanage, don't like that. And so Isabel has decided that she has volunteered to teach Winter how to be presentable in society. And they develop this relationship, and it is so good. And she doesn't know that he is the ghost of St. Giles, and he has to keep his identity secret from everyone while people are like hunting him because they think that he's like a bad guy. The like police are hunting him. And a lot of things like get blamed on the ghost of St. Giles. So like when people think that he's like killed like good men, and that he's like a danger to society. And so he is kind of losing control of this double life that he has, and he is trying to get it back under control. And while also trying to not fall in love with Isabel, because he has made this like noble vow where he has dedicated himself, body and soul, to the people of St. Giles, and he refuses to indulge in anything that takes away from his duty to protect them. And so he has, not only is he a virgin, he has never kissed anyone before, and he is finding it difficult to stick to his vow in the presence of Isabel the more that they spend time with each other. And it's so good. I loved it. 10 out of 10 would recommend. It's so good. I loved it. Okay, that's all the ones that I had to recommend. Let me know in the comments if you like this trope. I know it's a popular one, but I'm just curious to see. But that's it. So I hope you like this video. Give it a like if you liked it, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.